All right, everyone. Excuse me. And 3, 2. What's up, everyone, and welcome to Up and Out. I'm your host, LaPorsche. Okay, so my next guest is a contributing writer for Forbes and a network cable contributor. He is one of the only Black LGBTQIA plus correspondents out there right now, and he is a damn good one. I read some of your work. She sent it over. And, you're really doing your thing. Everybody, please welcome the one and only Richard Fowler.
Thank you, LaPorsche. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm blessed.
I'm happy. Yeah, I'm happy to see that. Now, we got to start with first things first, okay? Keke Palmer and this Darius situation. One, we just found out that Keke Palmer had a restraining order out against the father of her child, right? And we recently saw pictures of what looked to be a very an abusive situation. We saw the recent thing go down at the Usher concert, him complaining about what she had on. If you ask me, all signs of a very controlling man. I have to know your thoughts. What are you feeling regarding this whole Keke Palmer situation?
Look, I got to be honest with you. I think when you look at how the social media and the media has covered it, they've covered, couple gone wrong. And I think in the middle of this is a child. And I think it's really important for us to center their existence for a moment and remember when children start to pick up on trauma, right? Kids pick up on trauma at very early stages of their life cycles, right? So the fact that this little baby is watching this happen, right? And I'm not going to get into the he say, she say. It's very clear based on the court documents that Keke Palmer feels that her life, the life of her child's in danger, and a judge has ruled in her favor. And now she has temporary custody of her child. But in this moment, I think it's really important that you center the child and what they're going through. Oftentimes in this melee, in lieu of a better word, we often like to get into the drama and the tea around the two adults, and we forget that there are children in the mix, and those children are watching this, they're seeing this. And maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but a decade or 2 decades from now, this could show up in this child's life. And I think our prayer should be that that doesn't become the reality.
Listen, Richard, I hear everything you're saying, but also considering that this baby is like less than 1 year old, the best thing she can do for that child is take care of herself first.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying? Because once I saw the pictures of this girl being what looked like
oh, absolutely.
Slammed over I'm like, girl. And I'm not surprised because I have friends who have been in DV situations. I know a lot of different people in my personal life who have been in DV situations. And when I say DV, obviously I'm saying domestic violence for everyone out there. And I just think that so much shame comes with it, especially the more powerful of a woman that you are or that you seem to be to the public. I feel like it's even more shame because now you have to admit to everyone, oh, hey, I went through this, or I actually let this man get to me in that way. And I think that yes, the violence is there. Yes, the emotional abuse is there, but the embarrassment is something that we don't talk about a lot. And shame and embarrassment keeps a lot of men and women, all right, because we do know that DV works both ways, out of jail. The shame and embarrassment of the other person not wanting to admit or put it in writing or the love they have for them. And so as I'm like really reflecting on the situation, Richard, I'm like, one, I saw this coming. You could tell because the outfit that she had on at the Usher concert wasn't even bad. I'm like, we see those outfits in Atlanta at the club all the time. Okay. Right down the street, baby. Those outfits everywhere. That's not even my mind doesn't even clock that as anything, shameful. And when they try to do the short little press run, the little live video of them being together in the scenario, I said, okay, all right. It seems like you're trying to force this to happen. And I think that there's a lot of pressure that comes with being in a very, how can I put this, public relationship. I keep my private life extremely private. We can I talk about other people's business. Baby, we don't talk about mine. Right.
Well, I want to zoom in on something you said there because I don't want the audience to miss that point, right? Because you talked about the shame and the judgment that comes with it. Because when the story first broke, what you heard, and I love reading the comments in many of these stories just to see where the general public is. And what you heard was, how did she get herself in this situation? Why didn't she leave? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now understanding that these situations are oftentimes very dynamic. There's shame, there's judgment connected to it. She's a public figure, so there's her public persona and her reputation connected to it. And how I began, there's also a child in the middle of all of this that you have to like, so she's trying to balance all of these things while also living a very public life. And so I wanted to zoom in on the shame and the judgment, especially because a lot of that shame and judgment comes from the public. And oftentimes, Reverend Al Sharpton, in his 2004 DNC speech, said something. It's one of my favorite quotes from him. He says,
okay,
and I'm going to modify it a little bit, because oftentimes we spend far too much time worried about who's sleeping in the bedroom, and we don't spend enough time worried about who's eating in the kitchen.
Ooh.
And this is one of those moments where you see the media and social media focused on the bedroom and not the well-being of the people, which is what I think Reverend Al was talking about. Because if you're eating and you're thriving, then you have well-being. But instead, we like to zero in on what's happening behind closed doors in the bedroom. And oftentimes, as a public figure, as Keke Palmer is, and she's been for many years, she is now dealing with the shame of that and not able to. And I'm sure that caused a second thought in her mind. Like,
absolutely. And I think that the one thing that we know for sure, that history and so many examples in media have shown us over and over again, is that I'm about to use a reference too. Bill Clinton got head in the White House and everybody blamed Hillary. So, I don't know what it is about putting it all on the woman, but that seems to be the trend. Speaking of presidential elections and such, so last week we saw the election results come in across several different states, and we have some new figures coming to light. What should Black LGBTQ community members be aware of nationwide? I know you have a great answer to this, so please let me know.
Look, I think what we saw, the election results this past Tuesday were promising. We saw, people who are more so LGBTQIA friendly take control of the legislature in the state of Virginia. We also saw a more LGBTQ friendly governor, but let's be very clear, a more Black friendly governor in Kentucky elected, even though he happens to be a white man. What we saw, the Attorney General, Mr. Cameron, who ran against Governor Beshear, was somebody who, when given all the facts, when given overwhelming evidence, decided not to prosecute the officers that killed Breonna Taylor. And let me rephrase my language, who murdered Breonna Taylor, better language, right? And I think for a lot of reasons, there are a lot of voters in Kentucky that nobody talked about this. You didn't see this conversation happen in cable news. You didn't see this conversation happen in the mass media. They talked about Governor Beshear being more connected to the people, and all these things are true. But there was also a Breonna Taylor vote that happened in Kentucky, where there was a lot of voters that said, you are the individual that could have brought justice for Breonna Taylor and her family, and you chose not to do it. But I would be remiss if this past Tuesday's election was enough, because as we sit here having this conversation, if you live in the state of Florida, if you live in Texas, if you live in Oklahoma, if you live in Alabama, if you live in Mississippi, and there's more states, that your legislatures either passed legislation or they're getting ready to pass legislation that's going to make it harder for educators to talk about African American history. It's going to make it easier for folks to come into your school's libraries or your college community and ban books or ban social clubs and ban your way to exist. And I often say, especially as a Black person who lives in this space, who loves and looks like I do, when you think about the intersectionality of this attack, right? This attack is a multi-pronged attack. You are saying you can't teach African American history, and at the same moment, you're telling educators, and Florida is a great example, that they can't say gay, they can't put a picture of their partner up on their desk, they can't have access to LGBTQ safe healthcare. Who's stuck in the middle of all of this is James Baldwin, right? The James Baldwins of us, Black LGBTQ Americans that live at this intersection. So when we see these attacks happening, it's very important that both communities, the LGBTQIA community and the Black civil rights community, zero in on the fact that the fight that we're in is a fight that should center Black LGBTQIA folks, because we're in the middle of both bills.
Richard, I'm very happy you said that, because my last question for you, we got to make this quick. What should Biden do to gain momentum moving forward? Because
you asked that as a last question, LaPorsche. You wrong.
I know, but we got to leave a tease because I want you to come back. All right, thank you so much, Richard, for joining me today, and I cannot wait to have you back.
It's good to see you. Thanks. Good to be with you, LaPorsche. Take care.